Shalom. Giving all praises to the Heavenly Father, Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Rawchaa, Qadash. Double honors to the apostles, the bishops, the elders at Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and salutations as always to the elect. All right, you brothers and sisters who are coming back to the Most High God, Yahawah, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Bahashem, in the name of Yahawashi, the name of the only begotten Son of the Most High, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, Bahashem, in the name of Qadash, the Spirit Holy, or the Holy Spirit that has been sent from on high in the form of the Comforter in these latter days to give understanding to the servants, the prophets, okay, to give understanding, all right, to the body, to the church, as the scriptures in Ephesians, the 4th chapter says. All right, he have given some apostles, some bishops, some teachers, evangelists, and so forth, all for the perfecting of the ministry and the perfecting of the saints, so we can come to the full understanding. All right, and from that point, destruction comes. All right, and that leads to our deliverance. So I wanted to do a response to a question that was posed, or rather a comment, on this video done by the Elder Apostle Gabar. Okay, Daily Edification 4. All right, subscribe and be edified daily. The title of the video: So, who was the serpent in Genesis, the 3rd chapter? All right, great video. Watch it, be edified. Now, on the video, all right, Jake left this comment, and I thought that I could use this comment to bring edification to the church. All right, it's a pretty bugged out comment, but as it says here, peace family, I love to hear other people's opinions, which most likely this is one of those Israelites who's all over the place, who listens to a bunch of different philosophies, you know, Anunnaki type, you know how them Jakes be. All right, and you'll see why. It says, peace family, I love to hear other people's opinions on hard to understand chapter and verses. I respect some of the information you put out, but you did not bring out enough information on Genesis 3 and 1 to make the connection to Esau. All right, and that's ultimately that I want to address. But if you read the rest of his comment, which I didn't pick up, you know, as I first glanced over it, it left a response. He says, it is clear that Genesis 3 and 1, the serpent is not Esau, but Adam. Shalom, family. And that is just like, boy, you let Jake talk long enough or type long enough, eventually he's going to go completely left. All right. And if he's believing that the serpent is Adam, then he's completely out of his mind. Okay? And he should just stop. Anyway, you know, there's responses left by, you know, the apostle himself, you know, the elder brother Manata Zakba. I myself left a comment. And I'm going to come at this from the perspective of Revelation 12 and 9, as I posted here. You know, Revelation 12 and 9, and a great dragon was cast out, that old serpent. See, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. All right, and that's a future prophecy of what's coming. All right, in the war of worlds, you know, as Yahawashi returns, we know that ultimately the powers that be are going to make war with him. You know, it talks about that in Revelation 17. You can go to 2nd Esdras, the 13th chapter. All right, when the chariots invade, you know, during World War III Armageddon, you know, these nations are going to literally try to fight, you know, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, the holy angels, and so forth. All right, but the thing we're going to focus on in that chapter in Revelation 12, all right, is this term the great dragon and the old serpent, all right, which you would have to go to the top to get full understanding on this. Now, when you get Genesis 3:1, as the Apostle Gabar broke down and went into this word serpent, as it says, Genesis 3:1, now the serpent was more subtle, shrewd, crafty, which that can be either righteous or wicked, characteristic. Okay, he was more shrewd and crafty on the left-hand side, which Esau, Edom exudes that spirit today. Okay, look what he does to the food, the water, and he presents it as if, it's beneficial to you. He makes it to taste as if it's good for you, but it's actually taking you backwards. What he puts into the air, water, and the education to bring, souls over into bondage to sin. What he did with the music. All right, he's subtle, crafty, shrewd on the left-hand side. And when you read this story, the serpent was able to present, all right, a different philosophy outside of, the ways that led to life, the tree of life. All right, the righteous way that was given unto Adam in the form of breath and life. The serpent was able to present an alternative, way to godhood, or alternative way outside of what was prescribed. All right. And he presented it to the point, whereas when you read the story, all right, the woman saw that this philosophy that the serpent presented, it was pleasant. It was good for food and pleasant to the eyes. All right. A tree desired to make one wise. Now, here it is, the law, statutes, and commandments, the way that leads to immortality was already given unto Adam, passed down to Eve. Okay, and then they would, they had a union, they had children, which this is a history as well as just a one-day event. But here it is, the devil, the serpent, was able, which was a man, all right, a nation of people, a man, he was able to present an alternate wisdom, artificial wisdom, and make it to seem pleasant, and that's ultimately what they're presenting here in this time in the form of the technology, their science, which is pseudoscience. They're able to present it as an upgrade. Even the charagma, the chip, it's being presented as an upgrade. All right, something that's good and pleasant and to make one wise. You see, because he's very shrewd and crafty, but at the end of the day, that chip is going to be a mass enslavement. All right. But when you look up in this chapter, in this verse, Genesis 3:1, it says, now the serpent was more subtle than any of the beasts of the field. All right. And the beast represent nations. As you read Daniel, the 7th chapter, are not the nations that will rule. Okay. The Assyrian, Babylonian, the Medes, the Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, are not they called beast? All right. And when you go into the scriptures, all right, man, when he's operating outside of the law, statutes, and commandments, is likened unto a beast that have no rule over them. Okay. And even when you get Revelation, the 13th chapter, okay, the system that will rule in end time prophecy is known as a beast system. All right. So these are nations of people on the planet Earth. And then you had the family line of Adam, right? The Edomites. All right. And the serpent, as it says here, was more subtle than any of the beasts of the field. Okay. Which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, all right, yea, God hath said, ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden. He's questioning the order that Adam passed down to the woman. Okay. But when you look up this word serpent, when you go into this term, it's nachash. All right. Again, There is no way you can break down the Bible without understanding Hebrew, Greek, and some Latin terms. Okay? Now, when you look at it, serpent, snake, and that's what Christianity teaches, which I did a video going into the fact that this wasn't a snake, some months ago. We always go into that. But when you go into the root word, all right, nachash, all right, to practice divination, all right, to divine, to observe signs, to learn by experience, to diligently observe, practice fortune telling, all right, practice divination, all right, prognosticate. See? And what is prognosticate? Okay, these things are all tied to left-hand witchcraft, all right, practices, which that is what drives this current world. All right, it says to foretell or prophesy an event or the future, and they do all of these things by left-hand means. Even their inauguration, you see here, augur, you see that word there, augur, where the mouse arrow is. All right, that goes to inauguration, which the Romans, okay, as that's going to tie into this lesson, the Romans, all right, used, all right, for as a form of fortune telling. And you have today an inauguration where the president is brought into office, but that all goes back, all right, to ancient practices that are associated with witchcraft, predicting the future. Okay, so the very characteristics of the serpent are tied, all right, to Babylon the Great, the daughter of Babylon, which we're going to tie to Esau. Okay, to whisper a magic spell. Okay, an enchantment. All right, and I know brothers are already thinking Isaiah the 47th chapter. So the serpent was not a literal snake. A literal snake, all right, doesn't learn by experience. All right, now they do in the sense of their world, all right, but they don't practice fortune telling. They don't take omens. All right, they don't practice divination. They have qualities, all right, that can be tied to men, okay, because they're very, very, wise, either in good or evil, and deceptive. They're very wise because, they know they're at a disadvantage. All right, so when they strike, they have a purpose behind it. Now, this is a man. This is a nation of people that were in the earth at the time. Adam was in the earth. Okay. And what this video went into, all right, was who was the serpent and linked it to Esau. All right. And ultimately, this is for those who have ears to hear and eyes to see. All right. And you have to be in the spirit to see these things. Okay. In the spirit of the serpent. All right. The spirit of the family line of Cain. All right. As when you read about the family line of Cain. All right. They had those characteristics. They were very evil and wicked. Persecuted the sons of God. And so forth. All right. That spirit of the serpent, okay, returned into the earth through the biblical Edomites, all right, which would eventually, all right, father the Roman Empire in the sense of the fourth beast, all right, because, of course, the Japhetic people, ruled those lands where the Greeks and the Romans, took over, all right, but it would be the biblical Edomites, all right, who would conquer those lands, all right, and they would run, all right, the fourth beast known as the Roman Empire, all right, and we know that the Roman Empire will be revived into the earth, okay, in end time prophecy as the last rulership of the heathen, all right. Esau is the end of the world. Now, when you get Revelation, the 12th chapter, to tie this all together, all right, in the scripture in Ecclesiastes, the 6th chapter, says this: that which has been is named already, and it is known that it is a man, all right, these different nations that are here on the planet Earth have already been in times past. Okay? Remember, after the flood, all right, you had ultimately the earth was repopulated, all right, by Noah, all right, Shem, Ham, and Japheth and their wives. And eventually came 18 nations. Now, out of Shem, eventually, we know the chosen came out of, all right. But just as Adam had Cain and Abel, all right, at the time of Isaac, all right, he had Jacob and Esau, all right, which are the two major players within, all right, this story and that we're living through, the volume of the book, all right, the spirit of the righteous and the spirit of the wicked, okay? So that which has been is named already, and it is known that it is man, okay? Ecclesiastes 3:15, that which hath been is now, and that which is to be hath already been, and the Most High requireth that which is past. All right, because you have to think, did the serpent, all right, did the family line of Cain get away with those wicked acts of rebellion they committed? No. All right, they're going to pay, as we're going to show you, through the biblical Edomites. When you go to Romans or Revelation, the 12th chapter, okay, listen up. We're going to go through history and we're going to go through prophecy, and we're going to show you how we end up to this point where the dragon is tied to the old serpent called the devil and Satan, right? Revelation 12:1, and there appeared another wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, okay, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. All right, this is symbolic of the woman, which all throughout the Bible, Israel is likened unto a woman. All right, the wife of the Most High through his only begotten Son. All right, and to her was given, the wisdom, the knowledge. Okay, and it all goes back to Adam, but ultimately, to just get to the point, the 12 stars represents the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay, and it says, and she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth, pain to be delivered. And this is going into history of the Israelites as they were in that fourth beast. Okay, and when we say fourth beast, all right, what we're speaking of is Daniel, the 7th chapter, right? When you go to Daniel, the 7th chapter, okay, it gives you an outline of the major empires that would rule in the earth, all right, where we as Israelites will be captive to, okay? And the fourth beast is here in Daniel, the 7th chapter, all right, and the 7th verse, okay? The fourth beast, okay, which that system of Rome, okay, when you read, at the time of Yahawashi coming into the earth, that's who was in power, okay? The third beast, the Greeks, which are also Edomites, all right, you can read that history of the Israelites and that captivity in the Apocrypha, the Maccabees, okay? Now, the Israelites at this point were in pain to be delivered. Ultimately, they were being taxed. They were ready to be, ultimately receive their kingdom. They were, there was a lot of uprisings. Okay, then Yahawashi comes into the scene to do what he did, to offer up, that sacrifice and so forth. Now, which is important to where we are now. Now it says the red dragon, Satan, right? And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon. Okay, which this great red dragon is Esau, Edom, okay, who was red all over when he came out. All right, this is tied to him. All right, that scarlet colored beast. All right, the Bible, all right, speaks in symbolism. All right, but you have to tie it together. The red horse, okay, in the book of Revelation, the 6th chapter, right? This is speaking of Esau, Edom, right? And we're going to prove it further, all right? And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. This represents his beast system. Okay? You have the Greeks, as that's what started his whole beast system. All right, the Romans. All right, the Germanium Major, Germanium Minor. You know, the Spanish, the French, the British, and out of that came America. The 10 horns represent the vassal states and subordinate, you know, the EU, you know, which the Roman Empire had the same system set up. All right. So as you keep going, in his tail drew the 3rd part of the stars of heaven, which represents Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. Right. Remember, the stars of heaven, all right, is speaking of the 12 stars, the 12 tribes. Right? So his tail, the red dragon's tail, all right, and this is not literally a dragon. Okay? Let's look up this word dragon. I don't think I've ever looked that word up just to see. Oh, yeah, draconian. Yeah, Draco. We have looked that up before. You know, a dragon, a great serpent, a name for Satan, which when you get the book of 2 Thessalonians, the 2nd chapter, it tells you there's a man who will come to do the bidding of Satan. You know, which you have some weirdos saying that man is Apostle Tahar. But anyway, oh man, Judas Iscariot. But no, that's speaking of a system, that serpent, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, as we'll show you. So this great dragon, this red dragon, threw down, all right, the 3rd part of the stars. Again, who was in Judea or Jerusalem at that time? Because you have to remember, the northern kingdom, you know, at the time of the Assyrian captivity, came over to the Americas. That left Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, which you had remnants of the northern kingdom as well. But here in the Babylonian captivity, you had Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, all right, which eventually, you know, went to the Medes and the Persians and rebuilt the temple. From that point, the Greeks came, the 3rd beast, all right, and from that point, the 4th beast, which is the Roman Empire, and they were in captive. They were vassals, actually, okay? They were in subject to the Roman Empire, okay? Listen up. It says, and his tail drew the 3rd part of the stars of heaven and did cast him to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered for to devour her child as soon as it was born. All right. So this is going into history. All right. Of who was known as King Herod. Okay. King Herod. Right. Now, let's get the book of Matthew, the 2nd chapter again. The dragon, all right, which gives this beast system its power, pursuant to Revelation, the 13th chapter. Rome is what gave them their seat of authority, and it's Rome, all right, that pretty much is ruling today. They're ruling with that same authority today. So the dragon stood before the woman, all right, the nation of Israel, which whom Yahawashi came out of. It is evident that our Lord sprang out of Judah. He stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered for to devour her child as soon as it was born. That goes to this history right here. Okay. When ultimately Herod, all right, which there's a few Herods in the Bible. This was the direct, all right, son of who? Antipater the Idumean, which we'll show you. Okay. Herod was an Edomite. Okay. The Romans were Edomites. All right. Herod was crowned king of the Jews. Just like today, you have the Amalekites, which I believe Herod was an Amalekite, all right, who are over in the land saying that they're the true Jews, the true chosen people, right? And then you have other Edomites who rule in this beast system, but it's Amalek who's at the forefront of it, okay? And through the Roman Empire, through the Roman authority at the time, King Herod, or Herod, all right, was granted authority over Judea, okay? And you can look up Herod. It's another thing. You have to know history to understand the mystery, okay? Herod Herodes, heroic, the name of a royal family that flourished among the Jews, all right? And ultimately they come from, all right, the act of John Hyrcanus of the Hasmonean dynasty, which was of the Maccabean lineage, all right? There was a point where he forced, all right, the Edomites for various purposes. One of the purposes was, you know, so they can fight in his war. He forced the Edomites to convert to being Jews in the sense of being circumcised, taking on the customs. All right. It was a political move, all right, that eventually led to the likes of Herod, all right, which his father, as we'll show you, was Antipater the Idumean. But that's history you can look up. The Hasmonean dynasty, John Hyrcanus, all right, which was of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. I think it was a Levite of the Maccabean lineage. And ultimately he, all right, at some point, you know, converted a lot of these Edomites to what they call Judaism, to basically keeping the laws, because you couldn't fight in the army of the Jews unless you were ultimately a Jew. So he was like, well, all y'all gonna be Jews. And there's other purposes as well, but ultimately what came from that, all right, as you can see here, the name of a royal family that flourished among the Jews in the time of Yahawashi and the apostles. Herod the Great was the son of who? Antipater the Idumea. Antipater of Idumea. Okay, Idumea. Okay, see if we can look up what Idumea is. Idumea is Edom. Okay, I believe that's the Greek or Latin way, Latin or Greek way, I forget, Salakia, of saying Edom. All right, Idumea is Edom when you look it up. Okay, there you go. So they were Edomites. Herod was an Edomite, right? You can look up more. Appointed king of Judea, BC 40 by the Roman Senate at the suggestion of Antony and with the consent of Octavian, all right, which these are all people you can look up. He at length overcame great opposition, yada, 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 and you can read, okay? And there's other Herods that are of that lineage, you know, even Herod Agrippa at the time of Paul that you can look up, all right? So going back here, all right, and again, you just look it up, you know. Antipater the Idumean, all right, was the founder of the Herodian dynasty and the father of Herod the Great. Look at him. Who does he look like? Because they try to say the Edomites are no longer here. You mean to tell me these people ain't on the earth today? They're absolutely on the earth today. You remember so-called white people who were very, very proud of, you know, Rome and America being linked to Rome. Now that this truth has come out, you notice they've shied away, all right, from that mindset. Okay? So there you go. We know who these people are. And they've hid long enough. Now the truth of the matter is coming out. Okay, but he was I mean, you can look up this individual. Okay. All right. The Edomites, you look it up. Was King Herod from Esau's lineage? Yes, he was. King Herod, an Edomite. History affirms that the Herods were the Edomite family who reigned over Israel during the time of Yahawashi in the early Christian church. All right, and again, this is history you can look up. But again, let's go back, all right, because we're reading the history that's tied to Revelation 12 and 4, all right, of his tail drawing down the third part of the stars of heaven. Right, the Roman Empire had the Israelites in subject. According to Daniel's vision, the Israelites would be in captivity in the fourth beast. Right? And then it says the dragon stood before the woman to deliver her child as soon as it was born. All right? So let's go here. When you go to this history, Matthew 2 and 3, it says, and when King Herod had heard these things, he was troubled, because he knew the Savior was coming. He heard about the star that came in the east. All right, because, you know, you have many Jews who were anticipating the coming of this son that was to redeem them, that was prophesied all throughout history and prophecy. And here's the time for him to come. So Herod, an Edomite, which is our arch enemy, knew he had to do something about it. So when he heard these things, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes together, he demanded to know where the Messiah should be born. And he presented it as if he wanted to go pay homage and this and this and that. All right? Because here it is, they're presenting themselves as Jews, but they're Edomites in heart. They're Edomites in spirit, right? All right? And they said unto him, Bethlehem of Judea, for thus is written by the prophet, which is Micah, the 5th chapter, and thou, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, art not the least among the princes of Judah, for out of thee shall come a governor that shall rule my people Israel. Okay? Which the Edomites are not Israelites. Okay? Neither can they be truly grafted in a sense of just converting, you know, by circumcising themselves, keeping the laws, you know, which the Herodian dynasty were completely wicked and off. That was a political move, because Esau in spirit has always wanted, all right, to reclaim the birthright. All right. Remember in Genesis, the 27th chapter, when the blessing was given unto Jacob, okay, Esau was pissed off, though he received the blessing, which this Roman Empire is a big part of that blessing, which ultimately has, you know, through the Renaissance period, been reborn into the earth up until now, where he now has the fatness of the earth, the dew of heaven from above. He's conquered the world by the sword. Okay, but he wants that birthright back. See? That's why he's not, you know, at ease. You would think someone with all of the power of the biblical Edomites who rule this current beast system would be at ease. But why aren't they at ease? They aren't at ease because they want the birthright back. So here, even at the time of Herod, they put themselves in position of the Jews, all right, and put themselves in position to say they are the chosen people. You see that? The struggle between Jacob and Esau, all right, is the narrative, the narrative that goes from the garden before, all right, they were called, all right, Israelites and Edomites. Okay, you can read of the family line of Cain. All right, Cain and Abel. All right, which that's a very important narrative to know and understand, to understand the Bible. Again, that which is then is now. So the struggle between Cain and Abel, all right, is the struggle between Jacob and Esau. All right, which are two nations that are still in the earth. Their descendants are in the earth. Just remember what was told to the serpent. All right. There will be enmity between thy seed, the seed of the serpent, being ultimately fulfilled, all right, in the biblical Edomites, and the seed of the woman, all right, which is ultimately the Israelites. Okay. It says, and you can read that in Genesis 3 as well. There will be enmity, hatred, and this is a part of that. Okay, there will be friction. You wonder why there's so much friction between you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, and these Edomites, these so-called Europeans. Why? Because it is spiritual. Anyway, as you read this, King Herod, you can read that. Let's see here. Then Herod, Matthew 2:7, when he had previously called the wise men, inquired of them diligently for what time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, go and search diligently for the young child. And when ye have found him, bring me word again that I may come worship before him. See, he presented it as if he wanted to worship before him, but what did he want to do? He wanted to devour that child. Okay? And when they heard the king, they departed, and lo, the star which they saw in the east went before them, till it came and stood over where the young child was, which we know and believe was a chariot. It was a chariot that hovered over where Yahawashi was born. All right. And when they saw the star, they rejoiced. All right. All right. And when they were coming to the house, they saw the young child with Mary, his mother, and fell down and worshiped him. And when they had opened their treasure, they presented unto him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. Okay. And back in the day, fathers weren't in the delivery rooms. Okay. That's more of a modern thing. The fathers didn't see the child until, a little bit later, and after it was cleaned up and everything. But it says, and when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph, his father, in a dream, saying, arise and take the young child and his mother and flee into Egypt. All right. And be thou there until I bring thee word, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. Now y'all can see where this is going, right? When he arose, he took the young child. Now, if that wasn't his literal child, if you're at the threat of death, are you going to, your woman come to you, I'm pregnant by the Holy Spirit. No, well, you and the Holy Spirit, good luck. Okay? Mary herself tells you that Joseph is the father. When they came looking for Yahawashi, she said, your father and I have been looking for you. Anyway, that's a whole nother lesson, which I've been planning on going into that, but the Spirit will bring it out when it brings it out, going back into the whole virgin birth, immaculate conception arguments. All right. Now, when you go to verse 16, just to bring it all home, then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, all right, because they tricked him, okay, was exceeding wroth, and sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem and all the coast thereof, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had diligently inquired of the wise men, okay, which fulfilled the prophecy. So there you go. All right, then he died, and eventually Yahawashi, his parents, Joseph and Mary, and him, eventually settled back, all right, in Nazareth. He was born in Bethlehem, according to prophecy, yeah. But eventually they had to flee, and they settled in Nazareth, where he grew up, which was a subdivision in Galilee, all right, and so forth, okay. That's why it was a lot of division, when Yahawashi was born, from the Jews. Like, wait a minute, it said he was going to be born in Bethlehem, where he was born in Bethlehem. But as we just read, he had to flee. Him and his parents and him had to flee. So if you go back here, all right, now we know what this means by the red dragon, the Edomites, okay, the Herodian dynasty, okay, or Herod, stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. Okay, now let's keep going. And she brought forth a man child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. Now you see why Herod wanted to put this child to death, right? Because this child is ultimately pursuing to the blessing given to Jacob. Let's get Genesis 27. Let's get Genesis, the 27th chapter. Genesis 27, 27. And he came near and kissed him, and he smelled the smell of his raiment. And he said, this is the smell of my son. Remember, Rebecca helped to formulate a plan to get Jacob the blessing, which that was Jacob's blessing, before the world was even created. But the Lord likes controversy. All right. It is the smell of a field, which ye have blessed. And just imagine how good, the field smelled back then. It says, therefore, God give thee the dew of heaven and the fatness of the earth. This is Jacob's blessing, and plenty of corn and wine. Let people serve thee and nations bow down to thee. See, this is a blessing that Christians are now trying to say that don't exist no more. Be Lord over thy brethren. And see, this blessing fell on the 12 tribes of Israel. This is what we're entering into, brothers. Okay. It says, and you sisters who listen as well, and let thy mother's sons bow down to thee, the Edomites. See? Let's read this in the NLT. Again, let's NLT that thing. NLT, many nations will become your servants, and may they bow down to you. All right, and that's through Yahawashi. May you be master over your brothers, the Edomites, and may your mother's sons bow down to you, the Edomites. All who curse you will be cursed, and all who bless you will be blessed. Okay, and that's ultimately in the kingdom. When the nations follow the righteous ways and keep the customs and do what's good, they will be blessed. We don't run away from that, but they won't be under the covenant. Okay. They won't have eternal life. Okay. And they damn sure won't, all right, be in rulership and dominion with us. Okay. But yeah, they can be blessed if they do what's right. Okay. But when they do wrong, they will be judged. Okay. So there you go. That was the blessing given unto Jacob. And that's going to come through Yahawashi. So Herod was trying to cut that blessing off. And Herod is of that old serpent seed, as we'll show you. All right. It says, and she brought forth a man child who was to rule all nations. All right. And that blood being shed sealed the deal. All right. And her child was caught up unto God, unto his throne. After his sacrifice, he rose from the dead. All right. And eventually, for 40 days and 40 nights, broke bread with brothers and sisters. All right. And he went back up into the spiritual realm. He went into the chariot to return to the right hand side of the Father. All right. His original authority. You see? So as you keep reading, all right, it goes into other points of prophecy of what would happen with the Israelites as we fleed out of, 70 AD, where we would be kicked out of Jerusalem. All right. And all of that by the Romans. The Romans eventually kicked us out of Jerusalem. That's what verse 6 is going into. But for the point of the lesson, let's just go to the point. Then it jumps. All right. To verse 7. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels, okay, fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought against his angels. Well, what is this talking about? This is end time prophecy, because remember that fourth beast. Let's get Daniel, the second chapter. This fourth beast, okay, would rule unto the end. Okay, this fourth beast. Not rule until the end, Salakia. We know that the deadly, the head was wounded. The Western Roman Empire that those Edomites ruled eventually fell, all right, but it was rebirthed into the earth via the Renaissance, all right. So Daniel, the second chapter in the 40th verse, talks about that fourth kingdom, all right, and ultimately as it's reborn into the earth, which you have to go line up on line, precept upon precept. The image of the beast is now speaking and living today via America, which is Babylon the Great, all right, EU, NATO. This is nothing but Rome all over again, okay? But this is the kingdom that would be in rulership, the fourth beast, all right, at the time that the divine kingdom would be set up, okay? Daniel 2:44, in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms. All right. It says, let's see here. And he broke it down. But Daniel, the 7th chapter, also goes into how this fourth beast would have another little horn. All right. And ultimately, that's where the Lord would set judgment. That little horn represents the revival of Rome, which is Babylon the Great. And it's ran by the same red people. You see? And that's the system that will be in rulership, okay, at the time Yahawashi return. Okay, that's why it says here in Revelation, the first chapter, Revelation, the first chapter, in the 7th verse, it says, behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him, and also they which pierced him, and all the kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him. Who pierced him? Those were Roman soldiers. Okay, the Roman Empire. Okay. See, behold, he cometh with clouds. That's those chariots returning. See if we can get a precept to that. Yep. Matthew 24:30. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man coming in heaven, and all the tribes of the earth shall mourn. All right, when they see the Son of Man coming. All right. The Son of Man is going to come via the chariots of salvation, pursuing the prophecy. Okay. And what is he going to do when he comes? Let's get Habakkuk, the 3rd chapter, real quick. You know, a vision of the deliverance of God's people, as you can see here, God's deliverance of his people. How is he going to do that? All right. As he invades the world with the what? Chariots of salvation. All right. And this whole vision, you know, goes into a chaotic vision, which I did a lesson on that. Habakkuk 3:8, was the Lord displeased against the rivers? Was he angry against the rivers? Was thy wrath against the sea? Because it's going to be chaotic. That thou didst ride up on thine horses in the chariots of salvation. See? And as you keep reading, all right, it says, thou didst march through the land in indignation. Thou threshed the heathen in anger. Thou wentest forth for the salvation of thy people. Okay? Even the salvation of thine anointed, the Israelites. Thou woundest the head of the house of the wicked, by discovering the foundation, all right, unto the next Selah. So the Lord is coming back to destroy. Okay, but who will be in rulership? The wicked. He wounded the head of the house of the wicked. So the war in heaven here, okay, the war in heaven here, because when you read prophecy, it jumps. The war in heaven between Michael and his angels, which ultimately Michael is a high-ranking, all right, member of the Lord's host. Host is army, the Lord of hosts, which we know Yahawashi is at the head of it. Okay? Michael means he who is like the Most High. Okay? So, yeah, this is speaking of Michael, but overall, this is a prophecy of Yahawashi's return. Okay? Because Daniel, what's that? The 12th chapter talks about the same thing. Let's get that real quick. Daniel 12:1. And at that time shall Michael stand up. All right. Micah Allah, he who was like the Most High. All right. The great prince which standeth for the children of thy people. Okay. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even unto the same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that is found written in the book of life. All right. Matthew 24. All right. Matthew 24:31. And he shall send his angels with the great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, even from one end of heaven to the other. And the elect are Israelites. Okay, so this war in heaven is speaking of what we read about in 2nd Esdras, the 13th chapter, real quick. All right, and I'm going to just get to the point for the sake of time, because there's a few other points I want to bring out, because basically this is a vision, all right, that Esdras is having of the return of Yahawashi. And when he returns, there's going to be war going on the planet Earth. Okay? You know, Esdras talks about this big, gigantic mountain, which is the chariot, all right, returning. Okay? He talks about, you know, verse 3, and I beheld, this is the vision he saw, and lo, a man waxed strong with the thousands of heaven. A man waxed strong with the thousands of heaven. Revelation 19, and all of these precepts are coming to my head, so I'm just bringing them out. Revelation 19, all right, and 13, all right. Speaking of Yahawashi, the coming of Hamashiach. So I'll just get to the point. 13, and he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name was called the Word of the Most High. And the armies which were in heaven followed him with white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. And out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations, just like it said in Revelation, the 12th chapter. This is what Herod tried to stop. And he should rule them with a rod of iron. And he treaded the winepress of the fierceness of the wrath of the Almighty God. You see? And ultimately, the destruction is coming of the kings of the earth, the captains and the mighty men. See? So this war in heaven is symbolic, all right, or speaking about Yahawashi's return. And it's going to be tied to the old serpent, as we're going to show you, to link it all together. Okay, hopefully you seeing where I'm going with it. So, behold, I saw a man that waxed strong with the thousands of heaven, all right, and ultimately that's the angels, all right. He flew up on a mountain, okay. Verse 8, and after this I beheld, and lo, they which were gathered together to subdue him were sore afraid, and yes, dirt fight. So they were fighting each other, but then as you can see here, they're going to try to fight the return of Yahawashi, the Son of Man. All right. Let's see here. Let me go down. Verse 29, but behold, the days come that the Most High will begin to deliver them that are upon the earth, and he shall come to astonishment of them that dwell on the earth. And one shall undertake to fight against another, one city against another, one place against another, one people against another, one realm against another. This is going to be Armageddon, World War III. Total chaos on the planet Earth. And hey, the elect are going to be here through that and be delivered. This is what's coming. Okay? And the time shall be when these things shall come to pass, and the signs which shall happen, which I showed thee before, and then shall my son be declared. So his son is that man, all right, that Esdras saw ascending, the Son of the Most High. Okay, and when all the people shall hear his voice, every man shall in their own land leave the battle they have against another, and an innumerable multitude shall be gathered together, as thou sawest them, willing to come and fight him and overcome him by fighting. But he shall stand up on the top of Mount Zion, and Zion shall come and shall be showed to all men, being prepared and builded, all right, like as thou sawest a hill graven without hands. So ultimately the elect are going to be delivered. You see? So going back here, okay, to Revelation, the 12th chapter, to bring it all home. Verse 7, let's read it again. And there was war in heaven, okay, leading, to the time where Yahawashi returns to set up the kingdom, which ultimately King Herod, he wanted to stop. He tried to, obliterate the Messiah, at birth, so that he can ultimately stop, that blessing. You see? So, as you can read here, verse 7, and there was war in heaven. We just broke that down. All right. Various other precepts we can go to. Michael and his angels fought in the dragon. All right. Against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels. All right. This is ultimately, all right, the fulfillment, all right, of the seed of the serpent. All right. Fighting against the seed of the woman. All right. Which, when you go to Genesis, the 3rd chapter, all right, this is a prophecy. A lot of people get all messed up. All right. This is the curse that was given to the serpent. Genesis 3:14. And the Lord God said unto the serpent, okay, because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all cattle. All right. And the nations are likened unto beast. All right. Serpents aren't cattle. You see? Snakes are not of the cattle species. Okay. Basically, of all of the nations, Esau, Edom, all right, who this judgment will be tied to, okay, will be cursed above all of the nations. Proverbs 3:33, the curse of the Lord is in the house of the wicked. See? Let's get that real quick. I believe Malachi. Let's get that. Malachi 1. Let's see here. I forget where it is. This is a good one. Malachi 1:3. And I hated Esau and laid his mountains and his hairs his wastes for the dragons of the wilderness. Wherefore Edom said, we are impoverished. All right, but we will rebuild. All right, return and rebuild the desolate places. That's the Renaissance period. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, they shall build, but I will throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom the Lord have indignation forever. All right. And there's another one. Hold up. Let's see here. People of my curse. One second here. Maybe Isaiah 34. Boom. Isaiah 34:5. For my sword shall be bathed in heaven. Behold, it shall come down upon Idumea and upon the people of my curse to judgment. See that? And that's all tied, all right, to what we're reading here. Thou art cursed above all cattle, because of all of the nations, the biblical Edomites, all right, won't, as a nation, be in the earth at one point. And what the Lord does with those spirits, we'll see, because we know spirits don't die. All right. But they're cursed above all cattle and above every beast of the field. On thy belly shalt thou go, and dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life, meaning you will be the lowest of the heathen. All right. To be likened unto as a serpent in ancient time. All right. Was to, be a low person. All right. That's why, Yahawashi called those scribes and Pharisees a generation of serpents. And amongst the ancient Jews, the chosen people, the Israelites in that time, to call someone a serpent or put them on the level of a snake or a viper or an animal, all right, meant they were a vile person. So this is all ancient symbolism, okay? Which we know the Edomites are the most vilest people on the planet Earth. As the scriptures say, he will give the kingdom unto the basest of men. All right. And dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. Sit thou in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. Confusion. All right. You just ain't right. Again, and I will put enmity between thee and the woman, the serpent. He's speaking to the serpent and the woman, all right, and between thy seed and her seed, all right, it shall bruise thy head, all right, the woman, the seed of the woman, which is fulfilled in Yahawashi, okay, would bruise the head of the serpent. That's how you pretty much kill a serpent. And thou shalt bruise his heel, meaning ultimately he would take us down for a time, an Achilles tendon injury. All right. Most people don't come back from that, but ultimately we would be healed. So it shall bruise thy head. The woman shall bruise the serpent's head. All right. Let's get this scripture here. In the book of Romans 16 and 20, and the God of peace shall bruise Satan under your feet shortly. The grace of our Lord Yahawashi be with you. Amen. Okay. So ultimately, Nahum 3 and 19, there is no healing of thy bruise. All right. Babylon won't be healed. Esau won't be come back as a power after this. Thy wound is grievous. All that hear the bruit of thee shall clap the hands over thee. For upon whom have not thy wickedness passed continually? All right. Which that was speaking of Nineveh in symbolism of Babylon the Great. Okay. So ultimately, all right. And there's another one. The hairy scalp. See, Psalm 68 and 21. But God shall wound the head of his enemies, and the hairy scalp of such as goeth on still in his trespasses. That's Esau Edom. He transgressed by wine. Okay. He's going to wound the head of his enemies. And we just read in Habakkuk, the 3rd chapter, Habakkuk 3, right? And 13, thou wentest forth for the salvation of thy people, even the salvation of thy anointed. Thou woundest the head out of the house of the wicked. You see? So all of these things must be taken into perspective when you're understanding prophecy. See, the enmity between the serpent seed and the seed of the woman, okay, ultimately is being spoken about here in this chapter, Revelation, the 12th chapter, which the seed of the woman is the nation of Israel, but Yahawashi, all right, fulfills that he is that seed. He is the one that would ultimately bruise the head of the serpent. Our only way around this serpent and to a victory is through the second Adam. All right. So right here, Revelation 12 and 7, and it was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. All right. It started out as a serpent. Now it's a, 7-headed dragon with 10 horns, red. And the dragon fought in his angels. All right. His left-handed angels. And they're going to lose and prevailed not. You see, Isaiah, the 31st chapter. All right. They're not going to prevail. Isaiah 31 and 3. Now the Egyptians, which the modern day Egyptians are the biblical Edomites. This is Sodom and Egypt. They are the modern day Pharaoh, as we have been brought into Egypt again. Okay. Now the Egyptians are men and not the Most High power, and their horses flesh and not spirit. All right. When the Lord shall stretch out his hand, both he that helpeth shall fall, and he that hopeth shall fall down, and they shall fail together. How is that? Verse 5, as birds flying, so will the Lord of hosts defend Jerusalem. Defending also he will deliver it, passing over he will preserve it. So they're not going to prevail. They're not going to win. With all of the technology, all of the science, everything that they've been blessed with, on the left-hand side, through Satan, it's not going to be enough. Okay, as we read in 2nd Esdras 13, if you keep reading that chapter, which I may do a lesson on that whole chapter one day, Lord willing. Basically, like the Lord just destroyed them. He didn't have to lift up instrument of war. It was just the first round knockout. All right. Psalms 98 and 1 of my favorite scriptures, says, sing unto Yahawah a new song, for he have done marvelous things. His right hand, which is Yahawashi and the holy host, did a video on that. And his holy arm, okay, have gotten him the victory. You see, his holy arm have gotten him the victory. All right. his right hand and his holy arm. Okay. The word for arm, ZABAWALAN. Okay. Forearm, shoulder, strength as a symbol of strength. Forces. All right. He is the Lord of hosts, political and military. So the Lord has a military, you see, and the dragon and his military and his creations on the left-hand side are going to clash, all right, to fight against the second coming of who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. This is why they have a Space Force, the 6th addition to the U.S. military, 6th, okay? And the EU has their Space Force. They're going to literally fight, you know, other nations as well that are, you know, the Moabites, all of them, they have their stuff as well. They're going to be all trying to fight against the second coming of who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, but whose power structure he's coming to take down, all right, is the revival of Rome, which is ran by the Edomites. All right. So verse 8, and prevailed not, okay, neither was their place found anymore in heaven. All right. They're going to lose that battle. And that's twofold. They're going to fall out of the sky, literally their creator. They're going to lose. But heaven also represents a rulership. All right. A rulership. That's what the scriptures talks about. How they're fallen from heaven, oh Lucifer. I ain't got to get it. But ultimately that word heaven, all right, Shemayim, all right, it could also mean to be lofty. Okay, lofty. The high ones that are on high. Okay, they're going to fall from, all right, their rulership, basically. Okay. Revelation 12:9, and the great dragon, okay, which ultimately we know is tied to the ancient Roman Empire, the great red dragon, was cast out. That old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world, he was cast out into the earth. Okay, and his angels were cast out with him, meaning ultimately he lost the battle. Okay, to be cast out, I mean you fall from your rulership, you lose. Okay, let's read this in the NLT. Okay, it says, this great dragon, the ancient serpent, called the devil or Satan. See, the ancient serpent, all right? And this word for serpent in the Greek, okay, ophis, as you see here, ophis, snake, serpent, okay? With the ancients, with our ancient forefathers, the serpent was an emblem of cunning and wisdom, okay? He was more subtle, right? The serpent who deceived Eve was regarded, all right, by the Jews as the devil, all right? As you can see here, an artful, malicious person. As we know, 2 Thessalonians 2:8, and then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming, even him whose coming is after the working of Satan, with all power and signs and lying wonders. Okay, all of that sorcery, all of that magic, which again, when we go back to the meaning of serpent in the Hebrew, nachash, the root word, is an enchanter. Okay, an enchanter, enchantment. What is an enchantment? To enchant, to practice sorcery or witchcraft. Okay, to delight in a high degree of charm. Everything that this devil presents is a charm. It's an enchantment. It's to bewitch you. It's casting a spell on the people, from the food, the education, the music. Okay, it's all a delusion. It's all an enchantment. So this man is practicing a high level of sorcery, which is why when you get to Isaiah 47:12, as the daughter of Babylon, all right, is told to sit in the dust, as the serpent would, you know, be in the dust. We read that. But just to get to the point, what is Babylon the Great told to do? Stand now, Isaiah 47:12, stand now with thine enchantments and the multitude of thy sorceries, which thou hast labored from thy youth. Okay, your youth is your beginning. Taking him back to that ancient serpent. You see? Youth. All right. Nair, or Naira, youth, early life, taking him back to ultimately the serpent. Okay? He's coming with that same subtle, wicked philosophy, and many are falling for it. And see, Eve, the woman, fell for it back then, but all right, the faithful woman, the elect remnant, are turning from the ways of the serpent and turning back to the Most High God, Yahawah, through Yahawashi, man. You see? So pretty much that links the serpent, all right, if you have ears to hear, because who runs Babylon the Great? All right, the daughter of Babylon, because this daughter of Babylon, as you read here, all right, thou art wearied in the multitude. Oh, wait a minute, let's read. Stand now with thine enchantments and with the multitude of thy sorceries that thou hast labored with from thy youth. If so be, thou shalt be able to profit. If so be, thou mayest be able to prevail. Thou art wearied in the multitude of thy counsels. All right, prevail. All right. Let's see if you're able to prevail. What do we read in Revelation 12:8? And prevailed not, neither was there any more place found in heaven. So you're not going to prevail. With all of the blessing you have on the left-hand side, it's not going to be any match to Yahweh shiny angels. And the result is you're going to be as stubble. Behold, they shall be as stubble. Okay, fire shall burn them. All right. So they're wearied in the multitude of their witchcraft and their astrologers, stargazers, monthly prognosticators. Let them stand up and save thee from the things that shall come upon thee. And you're not going to prevail. You see, you're that dragon in the sea. Okay. Isaiah 27:1, the deliverance of Israel. In that day, Yahawah with this sore and great and strong sword shall punish Leviathan, the piercing serpent, okay? Even Leviathan, that crooked serpent, okay? And he shall slay the dragon that is in the sea. See, this is symbolic, all right? We know like the Lord ain't, so Leviathan is going to be used to aid, you know, in taking down you know, this devil and what's going on. He's going to stand up, right? But Leviathan is used here as a symbolism, just as ancient Egypt. Okay, in Psalm 74:13, thou didst divide the sea by thy strength. Thou breakest the head of the dragons in the waters. Okay. NLT, you split the sea by your strength and smashed the heads of the sea monsters, which that's talking about what he did in ancient Egypt. All right. When by Moses, he used to split the Red Sea. Thou breakest the heads of Leviathan in pieces and gavest him to be meat to the people inhabiting the wilderness. All right. And this is all symbolism. NLT, you crushed the heads of Leviathan and let the desert animals eat him. Okay. And this is all symbolism of, all right, what happened in ancient Egypt. Okay. The modern day Leviathan, the modern day dragon, all right, the modern day Egyptian, the modern day Pharaoh, all right, is Esau, Edom. Okay. Joel 3, in the wilderness, we know what happened in the wilderness. We know that history, which that's what that's talking about in Psalms the 74th chapter. Okay, the Egyptians were likened unto a Leviathan, you know, a powerful, mighty, all right, dragon ruling in the sea. The sea is the people. Joel 3. Let's just get to the point. In 19, Egypt shall be a desolation, and Edom shall be a desolate wilderness for the violence against the children of Judah, because they have shed innocent blood. But Judah shall dwell forever in Jerusalem from generation to generation. So you Edomites are the modern day Pharaoh. Romans, the 9th chapter, gets into that. All right. You are the piercing serpent. You are the dragon that rules in the sea. Again, the sea is the people. You're that scarlet colored beast, like it says in Revelation, the 17th chapter in the 3rd verse. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet colored beast full of the names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. See that? But here in Revelation, the 12th chapter, all right, the red dragon had 7 heads and 10 horns. So this is speaking of the same exact system, okay? And that scarlet, when you look that word scarlet up, it's just a derivative of red, all right? But see, you have to be able to put the pieces together in the spirit. This is Esau's beast system, all right? Scarlet colored, all right? Kokinos, all right? Boom. Produces a red, and when collected and pulverized, produces a red, which is usually dying, all right? And y'all know that scarlet is basically red, you know, crimson, which is all tied to Esau, Edom. You know, at the end of the day, you're that modern day Pharaoh that's going to be taken down. You're that old serpent called the devil and Satan. All right. Revelation 20. Revelation 20 and 7. And when 1,000 years, all right. No, let me jump up. Boom. Revelation 20 and 1. And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key to the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is called the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. This is going into history of what happened when the Western Roman Empire fell. The bottomless pit being Europe, the great chain meaning ultimately the slavery and the downfall that was coming to the nation of Esau, to the Roman Empire at that time, the Western Roman Empire. And they were bound 1,000 years, which goes into the Byzantine Empire. And ultimately, after that 1,000-year period, the Renaissance, he was loosed and ultimately went out to deceive the nations, which is going to lead to Gog and Magog, as we see here, gathering innumerable nations, World War III. Okay, him coming after the saints, and his ass being cast into the lake of fire. So the old serpent called the devil and Satan, all right, is Esau Edom, all right, who ultimately was the father of the first, all right, well, the 4th beast, okay, and the revival of it. And they are ruling today, getting ready to go into perdition. Hopefully you all were edified. On to the next. Shalom.